Hey, so last time we made this into a clear keycap, let's make a colored one this time. So to start, I have my 3 molds here, and the first resin shot will be the black nose. So I'm mixing some resin here with some black pigment in it, and we're going to put it into each of the molds. By the way, I feel like a lot of people have asked about the tool I'm using. It's going to be linked below in the description if you want to 3D print one for yourself. So now that I've put the first resin shot in, it can go in the pressure pot now. I'll let it cure for roughly 2.5 hours in the pressure pot. So 2.5 hours later, we can start working on the second resin shot, which is the toma doge stem. For this, we'll use green resin. I also added a little bit of cabosil to the resin. It essentially acts as a thickener and makes the resin less runny. This property can make it a bit easier to work with in multi-shot keycaps. As you don't want your resin to run around all over the place, you really want to keep it in specific locations in your mold, depending on your specific design. In this case, since the stem is on the top of the keycap, we're going to flip the mold upside down. That way we're not fighting against gravity when we're inputting the green resin into my mold. As you can see, I'm trying to fill in the stem completely without having it run out. As you can imagine, this is really time consuming, especially when you consider that each resin shot has to be cured under pressure in the pressure pot. This means that each additional resin shot could add several hours in the resin casting and curing process. When you think about how many hours go into making just one artisan keycap, it kind of justifies what seems like a really high cost. For instance, I feel like a lot of people get shocked when they see some artisan keycaps costing anywhere from $50, $60, even $70 or $90. If you really think about how many hours went into those keycaps, maybe it's not that much money? I don't know. At the end of the day, you're really buying someone's art, and whether you think that art is valuable enough to spend money on is ultimately your decision. I just hope that by showing you this process, it gives you some deeper insight into the world of artisan keycap making. So anyways, with the stems filled now, we need to let that cure in the pressure pot as well. 2.5 hours later, we can now work on the third resin shot, which is to fill the stems. So this is basically doing the same process, but this is for the details that appear on the butt of the keycap, or basically what you see when you flip the keycap over and look at the stem. Honestly, I don't really know a easy way to do this. I kind of just put some resin on top and try to use my finger or a popsicle stick to kind of level out any excess resin and ensure that the tiny details here are filled in. I think I also end up making a mistake in this clip, as the pot life of this resin I believe is about only 9 minutes. That means I only have 9 minutes of working time until the resin hardens up. By the time I get to the third mold, the resin had started hardening up too much, and I couldn't really get the resin in there as it was literally turning into what looked like pink bubble gum. Very sticky and gooey and not conducive to keycap making. You can even see how much I'm struggling here to get it off my tool. Regardless, this eventually also goes into the pressure pot for another 2.5 hours. So here are the molds out of the pressure pot, and you can see the one in the middle was the third mold that I didn't have enough time to put the resin in. Since it was hardening up too fast, there's a lot of air bubbles. At least I have the excuse of having to film while casting. But anyways, here's everything together. We can now move on to the fourth resin shot, which is to fill the body of the actual keycap. After watching this footage back, I think I definitely need to slow down when I'm stirring my resin, as I'm probably introducing a lot of extra air, which could lead to air bubbles in my final product. I'm also going to try to patch up that hole with this resin. It probably won't work, but we'll see the results later. With everything full, we now need to gently put the 2 halves of the molds together. Make sure you do this gently without introducing any air. You don't want to push too hard when pushing them together. Just be gentle enough to let the molds slide in together. I'm also going to pour my extra resin into the reservoirs at the top. There are sprue holes in the top part of this mold, which will allow the resin to sink back in while it's being pressurized within the pressure pot, meaning that the resin hopefully displaces any air. At least that's how I understand it. And yeah, now we can put this in the pressure pot for the final cure, and then we'll see what our results look like. So these are the molds out of the pressure pot. We can open them carefully now to view our final keycaps. I'm trying to gently pry them open as I don't want to damage the molds in any way, as I'll be hopefully making many more keycaps with these. Either way, if you made it this far into the video, please consider liking this video, leaving a comment down below, and subscribing to my channel. I'm really trying to grow my YouTube channel and it'll help me a lot. But anyways, here are my final keycaps. You can see they're not perfect, as there's a little bit of what looks like resin flecks that got trapped in the resin. Since I didn't add enough dye to make the body opaque, any debris or defects trapped in the resin will be more visible. So yeah, unfortunately these weren't perfect, but let's go ahead and remove them from the molds now. Here I'm using flush cutters to carefully cut them off of the spruce. Here's all three side by side once we've removed them from the molds. Here you can even see some defects in the stems. One of the stems turned out super bubbly for some reason. Here's a closer shot so you can see how the stem turned out. And here's it compared to the better one. This one has a lot less bubbles in the stem. So yeah, overall, like with my Hahuata keycap, it looks like my Toma doge keycap also has a lot of work needed. I'll continue to practice my resin casting and will have more videos uploaded in the future, so keep an eye out and please subscribe to the channel if you're interested. And as always, thank you so much for watching my video.